Okay, one last video on the Tevo. This is something I probably should have covered in the video earlier, called the good, bad and the ugly, but I sort of missed this one. And it's to do with the Z-axis alignment. Seems quite common that people are mentioning about this Z-axis lead screw and the alignment and removing this plate and bearing and all sorts, and I should have covered it beforehand, so I do apologise I didn't, but I shall cover it in depth on this video now. As you can see, I haven't removed mine. I don't think there really is a need to remove it. You can remove it if you want. It doesn't serve a huge purpose other than just to stabilise the actual main Z lead screw. But the problem with this is if it's not aligned perfectly, it will hinder the lead screw from turning slightly, and that can lead to some issues in your print. It's not the only issue that you'll find with your Z-axis. There are other things that can cause some problems, but this is definitely one that people keep talking about, so I shall just mention what I've done with mine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind my carriage all the way to the top. So basically everything's under tension really, almost, with the cables are quite taut. And I'm going to wind this up to the very top, see if I can get a good stable image. And what you can see is I'm going to wind it up to the top, and it does fall back on its own accord. Okay. I've changed these screws, these machine screws, to stainless ones, purely because the heads on the other ones wouldn't allow me to tighten them properly without the heads chewing, so I've changed those. But I found my alignment of the lead screw to the aluminium extrusion was slightly too far held off that way. So it was held off slightly, only by a fraction, too far that way. And I had to basically open these holes up in these screw holes and just run a 5.2mm drill through them and clean out the paint and just slightly open the holes up. That allowed me to push my bracket back into a more sensible position, and it didn't then affect the rod, it didn't bind the rod up. So I've managed to keep my plate on and the bearing and do it up tight, and it doesn't affect the Z rod at all. And the way to kind of set this up, and you can do a simple test to see if yours is actually binding, and that is wind it up to the top. So what I'm going to do is just try and wind it up as high as I can. It should try and spin down all on its own. And what you're going to do is you're just going to tap your Z-axis, and as you can see, just by tapping, that is slowly dropping. If yours doesn't drop when you tap this, or when you just give a slight bit of down pressure, if it's sticking, see that slowly dropping? If that is sticking, then it's not perfectly in line. I mean, you can remove the bracket, as I say, and just not worry about it, but you know, for basic mechanics, everything should be aligned and everything should be supported. That's the idea of a mechanical design, a good mechanical design. And there's nothing wrong with this design, it just doesn't align up correctly, or mine didn't without opening the holes up. Yours may be fine, it may just need loosening these Allen screws off, winding the Z screw all the way up to the top. Just give it a up and down wiggle to make sure it's nice and free, and do these bolts up and just nip them up slowly, making sure that that is still nice and free. And if you tap this afterwards and it drops, then I'd say it should be free enough, and that's not going to cause you any hassle. So yeah, that's the lead screw support bearing plate covered. This is what I found, and this is my solution. And yeah, now I've done this, there's not a problem, and I've not removed anything, I've just aligned it correctly. I mean, it just drops so easy now and moves easy. When I first got this, it didn't do that, so it wasn't free when I first got this. Okay, so that's that covered. The other thing that can stop your Z-axis from moving too freely is having this cam done up too tight. If you do adjust this cam, or you haven't checked it, if this is too tight on these cam wheels, there is a little bit of give in the bearings, and there's a little bit of give in the V-groove wheels, and your carriage can sort of just sit there, and you know, the stepper motor has moved round a fraction of a step or whatever, but it hasn't actually lifted the whole carriage very much, or it hasn't lifted it the correct amount, and that's because this is too tight. So if this is too tight, or your cam is too tight, then you're going to have some Z banding and some Z issues. So there you are, guys. That's hopefully my last video really on the Tevo for a while, on Tevo Michelangelo. I just wanted to cover this lead screw Z-axis. It seems something that everyone seems to be mentioning, but it's a setup issue. Set it up correctly, there's no need to remove it. In fact, I would prefer to set it up correctly and leave it in place, but your choice, guys. I just thought I'd show you how to set it up correctly and check it, and once you do that, you know, it's just another part of the alignment thing with this printer. You know, that's the thing with these V-groove and bearing wheel sort of setups. They do need some checking and making sure they're aligned correctly. Once you've done that, then yep, should be good for some time. Okay guys, that's it, end of video. Sorry it's another long one, but just wanted to cover the lead screw, the support bearing, and how I've resolved the problem, and that's what I've done. It's down to you to choose what you do. But thanks for watching. Cheers guys.